Okay, welcome back. Yeah, so in the previous episode, we created our connection. It was successful. If you check, we created this file called dbconnection.php, where we put the database credentials, all the credentials that are required to connect. We show where we get those credentials, and the reason why we put everything in a separate file is to help us, because every time you are going to do any operation on the database, you need this database connection. And so we put in a different file so that if we need it anywhere, we simply inject it using the require or the include. Okay, so this is very, very helpful. If you did not understand it very well, please watch the previous episode carefully so that you understand each of these things that we did here. Okay, so in this episode, we are going to create on our first CRUD operations, and we are going to look at the create operation. Okay, we are going to look at the create operation. Right now we are having here the stand for now. We have created a connection to our database. That is very good from our project. That means our project is communicating with our database that we created in also our previous videos. Okay, so we have a student DB, and inside it we have a student's database, which has how many fields? It has the ID, which is automatically going to be generated. The second one is the student name. The third one is the student course. Okay, so we would want these fields to be inserted by a user. Someone should come, and where do we get these fields to come into the database? The most probable answer is a form. Okay, that means in this place we are going to have a form. Okay, we'll have to have a form, and then we can actually insert that data inside the database. Now, before you create your forms, you have to look at your database. Okay, look at the fields you need. The ID, we need it, but it is automatically generated by database. That means the user is not going to be entering the ID. So that means that we only leave us with only two fields, the student name and the student course. Okay, so we need only these two fields. That means our form should contain two fields. So go on top here, just down here, just going to see shift 1 or shift this exclamation to bring up the document. Okay, the HTML document, I have it right now. So inside here, I'm just going to create a form. So create a form the way we normally do it in HTML. I know you are familiar with this form tag. So inside we need two fields. Okay, and they are going to be input text. So just say input text, enter. The name first of all. So now we are getting to this. Pay attention. We need two fields. The first one, student name. Okay, so to avoid confusion, always use these names you have used in your database. Okay, you give the names you have here as the fields in your database. Stick to these ones to avoid confusion. Okay, so we have the first field as student name. So I'm just going to copy that. Come here, and this name here, make it student name. You see? So this student name is the first one. ID, we don't need it. What we can do is a placeholder. So we can write a placeholder and say enter your full name. We could just say full name or enter username, anything. You just say enter full name. As simple as that. Then secondly, so after this we have another input, or we have another name, which is student course. So I'm just going to copy that. Just come here and do another input. So input text. Okay, and then the name here is student course. Student course ID, we don't need it, we just need a placeholder. So I'm just going to say enter your course, enter your course. Okay, enter your course. As simple as that. So we have these two fields. Now we have to put the submit button. So down here, let's add an input button. So you could just say input, okay, type submit, as simple as that. So the value, if you can use an input type of submit, or you can use a button of type, you can use also a button of type submit. They all do the same. Okay, so here I'm just going to use this. If you prefer using a submit button, it is okay. If you can use input type submit, it is still okay. Any that you want, it is going to work. So for the value here, I'm just going to put submit. Okay, submit. So this is the name that you are going to be seeing. And then lastly, I'm just going to put the name. So give this name. People normally forget this part, by the way. They give the type and the value only. You must also give the input type submit, give it a name. So the name here, I'm just going to call it submit button. Submit button. And look at how I've written submit button. Okay, so this is one step now. We have the form that is going to require us or pick the information from the user. That is a very nice step. You have the input, and I know very well that you guys, you are familiar with HTML, and this part is not hard. The action is where should this data be sent. So we want to send it in the same file. We could now say $PHP, and just let's cross here. Let's cross, not like that, just like that, cross. Inside here, I'm just going to put echo, and we're just going to put $server. So you remember this $server, and the key one to access is PHP self. This one, PHP server PHP self, is a global for accessing this index file. We're trying to say simply submit this data in the same file. Okay, in the same file. That's what we are trying to say. Don't forget, another thing is the method. Okay, so put the method and just simply make it post. As simple as that. So the first thing, each input must be given a name. I insist, each input must be given a name. This name is the one you're going to use to recognize this data. Secondly, it must be given action. The form must be given action where the data is going to be sent. If you want to send it in any other file, you just put its name here. Thirdly, you must make the method to the form to post. It is not an alternative, or it's not an option. It is a must that you mention the method you want to send the data with. Okay, so after you have done all this, the second thing you are going to do is now receiving that data. Okay, so the first thing is you could just say if. Okay, I'm just going to make it simple. So we can just check if that button has been clicked. Okay, of course you could first check if the request method is post. I'm just going, for simplicity, I'm not going to put that complexity right now. I'm just going to write only one if. I'm just going to say if is set. If is set. Okay, now what does this mean? If is set. So what I want to check is if the submit button has been clicked. If is set $post. Okay, and the key here is the submit button. If you remember here, we wrote the submit button down here. I'm just going to copy this name, move up, put this name here. So if is set $post, this one is the equivalent of saying if the submit button has data or it has been clicked, then do this. So what do we want? Of course, is we want to get the student name. Get the student name, okay, which is equivalent to, how do we get the student name? All these ones are located in the post associative array. So $post, and here we simply use student name, the same name here, And by the way, to avoid spelling mistakes, just simply go down here and copy this name attribute. Control C, come up here, just paste it here. Just going to paste it there and also paste it inside here. So this one is going to give us the name. We are going to do the same to the student course. Okay, so I'm just going to go down here, copy the student course, the name here, student course. Okay, so we just say dollar student course is equal to dollar post, and here we put the key, which is equal to the student course. As simple as that. So at this point we have our data. Okay, at this point we have our data. Now we don't want to submit the data before you do some nice things. Okay, now in this episode or in this as we are learning the CRUD, I'm going to stick to a minimalistic approach. I'm not going to be writing all the validations, all those extensive validations. I'm going to stick it to something which is very easy, you can connect with. Now, normally what you want to do is you want to get this data. So at this point you have gotten this data. So the next step, of course, would be, so we normally just do two things: get the data or receive the data. So at this point we are receiving the data here. Okay, to validate the data. So that is the second, another thing, validate the data. So you want to know this data is actually valid or it is not empty. They're just not sending empty stuff. Then the third one is actually insert or save the data to the database. Save data to DB. So you can see these are the three steps that we have: 1, 2, and then 3. We have 3 steps. We receive the data, we validate the data, and then we save the data. So to validate the data, we have to assume in the first place this student name and the student course, they are empty, and we can actually do that like on top here. Okay, we can create these variables. So let's create the 2 variables. Okay, one for the student name. So why are we creating them outside? We are creating them outside to make them empty by default. So want to create them, okay, and then we give them empty. So that means here by default the student name and the student course, they are empty. Okay, they are empty. And now when we come inside here, when the data is submitted, we add the data inside this name and this student course. Okay, another thing, we could create an error. Okay, so want to give an error to the user to know that something is wrong or he needs to put the data. So the first thing, we could also say that there is no error at the beginning. So we could just say, we could call it error, I guess. Okay, errors or error, it doesn't matter. Now at this point, I'm just making it, I'm just going to make one error for both for simplicity purposes. But in the future, when you're just doing a big project, we'll just advance it a little bit where we do for each individual. But for now, let's take creating an error just like that, and you also make it empty at this point. Okay, at this point there is no error as we are starting. There is no any error in the application. All fields are empty and there is no error. But then as we validate the data, so when we validate the data and the data is not valid, we want to give the user some error. Okay, so for instance, want to check if these fields are not empty. That is the most thing that we want. we want the user to write something in those fields so that we don't insert nothing in the database. So we could just write an if statement, and if, for instance, student name, if student name, so student name is equal to empty, that is if it is nothing, or if the student course is also not having anything, dollar student course, okay, if the student course is equal also to null or to empty, we want to give an error. So we could just write an error here. So error, we already have this one, is equal now, so we could just give something like all fields are required. All fields are required. All fields are required. Please fill them. Please fill all of them. As simple as that. So that is the error we want the user to see. So the next thing would be like, how does the user see this error? Okay, how do we now put this error so that the user could see it? And by the way, when we go back to the UI, just right click, refresh, we have the name, we have the course, and the submit. This is really nice. Okay, now let's go back to the application. And for now, this DB connection successful. I'm just going to, let's first leave it. We want to know there is no any problems while we are connecting. Let's leave it on top there so that we just know the connection is always good. I can even close this. So how do we put this error onto the UI or onto the near the form so that if a user doesn't put anything, he can see? Okay, for now, if you come here, you can click submit. You can see things are submitting, like it is sending the data. We don't want that. We want, if he has not filled in anything, when you click submit, some errors should come on the UI and he knows that there must be something to be done. Okay, so we say if the student is empty and if this one is this, so we create this error. Okay, we could create this error, or you could have just done a simple script alerting this one. Okay, it is all about you. I'm just going to show you all the methods. So the first one, we could write an echo statement echoing this one. Okay, could just do a simple something like echo, and in the echo we can even echo script. So I'm just going to write here a script, and this is JavaScript. Okay, so inside JavaScript we can just write alert, the alert statement here, and let me put single quotes since we have double quotes outside, and this alert has a problem. So I'm just going to do this, put it here like so, and as simple as that. We just need we echo the alert. So this, if we echo this script, alert is going to run JavaScript. By the way, that is the good thing with the echo. It can even echo HTML, or it can echo JavaScript, it can echo anything. Okay, it can echo this one. So you could just say it echoes this alert, all fields actually, all fields are required, please fill them all. Okay, so let's just go back here. So we haven't filled anything. Click submit. You see that all fields are required, please fill all of them. Click OK. So you see it returns you back to the form because the fields were not filled. So that's why it is doing this. Okay, so you could just do this or you could just put this one in the air like this. So let me just comment out this one. Let me show you now the second way. So the second way is having this error here, and then on near the form, okay, this is the common one that you will be seeing on the UIs. So on top of the form here, we could now put the error. Okay, we could put the error, and let's just write here the PHP. So just write PHP Okay, simple as that. So you could just write here something like if is set error. So if is set dollar error. So attempt to say if you find that there is something in the error variable, that is if it sees there is something, then it should do something here. Okay, so what it could do here, we could put a div. Okay, we could put a div for error here. Let me just cut this and write a div. Not just cutting only this whole PHP. So on top here, let me write a div for error. So I'm just put here maybe a p tag p.error. Okay, and let me just put this one. So here we can just say echo error dollar error. Simple as that. So once say if there is error, then you echo it out. If you find that the error is there, echo it out here. And here on top we have this error here. Okay, we have this error here, and yeah, so I'm just going to create a CSS very fast. In fact, I can just create it in here. So inside here, let me create style, and let me say dot error. Okay, dot error. I'm just say color red. As simple as that. Just want to give a color of red, nothing else. So here to this, we have this class of error given to this p tag, and it is just going to be giving just our error a color of red, only that. So let's just go back. You see, by default, even if I refresh, nope, let me just go here, refresh. You see, we have nothing. We have no error, we have nothing. We only have successful connection. We have no errors. But if you click submit now, all fields are required, please fill them. Okay, in fact, let me just add this word fields. So this error is coming here. All fields are required, please fill them, fill all of them. So this error here, let me first do it once again. There is no error at first, nothing, everything is good. When someone clicks submit without putting the details, it brings this error. All fields are required, please fill all of them. So this is a good validation. Before you you submit data, you can do all the validations. Now the validations can be so many. We are going to be seeing in the future one by one. We'll be seeing for the full name, the email, the password, and all those kind of stuff. Okay, so we'll be doing all the validations, but for now let's stick to the CRUD. And since we are looking at our first one, let's stick to the CRUD. So at this point we are on the we have validated. The only remaining thing is saving the data to the database. Now that one takes us back to the CRUD, because we all know that the first C is create data, like adding or inserting data in the database. Okay, so let's just move to where we have the create here. So on the CRUD operation, the first one is called create, and it is the one which adds or inserts the data into the database. Okay, so in PHP, this can be accomplished using the SQL query insert into. So the create operation uses the SQL query called insert, and we talked about it in earlier that when you are adding data or creating data, we use the insert SQL. So how do we use this insert SQL to insert the data into the database? So here the first thing we always have, create a connection to the database. So you can see we have the connection which we did in the previous episode, and then we have this one where we write the SQL. Now let's break down this SQL. Okay, let's break down this SQL. So this SQL, first of all, we put it in a variable. So you can see here, we put in this variable. Let me just grab a pen. So we have this SQL variable, but the most important thing is this SQL. Insert into, so this is the command, the SQL command. Okay, insert into. Now this one here, the users, is our table name. This is the table. If I can write here. So this is the table. So this users is your table in the database. Okay? Because you have already connected the database, at this point, you don't need to explain which database because it already connected to it here. So at this point, you simply, in the database, there are so many tables we are going to be seeing. You can have many tables. So you have to specify which table are you trying to insert the data. So insert into, it is the SQL command or the SQL. Into users, this users is the table, and into brackets we have the fields. If you look here, these ones you are saying the name, the email, and the password. These ones are the table fields in the users table. Okay, and then we have values. So the SQL continues values, and these values you see here, these are the actual values that actually we add into the database. So you can see the John Doe matches the name, the email is john@theexample.com, the password is this password 123. So these ones, they must match. So this one is the SQL command that is going to help us insert the data. Then we insert the data using this function, MySQLi query. And it takes in two parameters. The first one is the connection, which we already have. The second one is the query you want to execute, which is this query here. So there are two things you have to have before you insert data into the database. You must have a connection established, and then you have a query that you need to be executed onto that database. Okay, and this case we wanted the database, and we could do something like this. Okay, so handling the notifications on inserting the data, we want to tell a user that a new record has been created. Okay, like a new record has been created successfully, and then afterwards you can just, or you say there was error that happened, and you can see we are still using the MySQLi error at this point, and it takes in a connection. Okay, so let's just do that. Okay, let's just do that. So I'm just going to discard on this one. So go back and let's write our SQL, and we're writing this SQL from here. The first thing is, so we just go and create a variable. So here down, $SQL is equal to double quotes, and it starts with insert into. Okay, where are we inserting our data? We have our database called students. If you remember here, we have our database called student DB, and it has a table called students. So we want to insert the data. We want to insert the data in the students. So insert into students, brackets. Now you specify the fields you want to insert the data, and we have only two: student name and student course. So come here and say student name, comma, student course. Okay, and which values are you adding there? So we also write values, like these are the values we are putting inside these ones. Okay, so inside here we want to put the values. And where do we get the values? We already populated them inside this, the dollar student course and the dollar student name. Okay, so these figures we get them from the user after he has filled in the form, and now these are the ones we are going to insert inside there. So simply get this dollar student name. Okay, so come here onto the values, put quotes. By the way, it is very important to note that this here, these variables, they must be in quotes. Okay, probably single quotes because we have already used double quotes outside. So use here single quote. I'm just going to put a comma, put another quotes, and inside here I'm just going to paste the student name, and in fact student course. Why am I copying these fields? Don't just simply write, copy them to avoid spelling mistakes. Okay, it is very at first you will be making a lot of spelling mistakes. Okay, so we have finished our SQL. I'm just going to run by one more time. Insert into students. The students is the name of the table inside our database, and these are the fields that are inside that table where we wish to insert the data, and the values is the actual values we want to put to fill these the fields. Now in the values, they must be in quotes. I used to make a lot of mistakes putting these ones not into a comma and into these quotes, and you will get mistakes or you get errors onto your UI. Okay, so now after you have done the SQL, the second thing now is inserting the data into the database. Okay, so next we simply call MySQL query. Okay, so this query is the one which actually inserts the data into the database. It takes in two parameters. The first one is the connection, and the second one is $SQL. So it takes in the query, and then also the connection. And where do we get this connection? Why is it not bringing an error that it is undefined? Remember, we have our require DB connection on top here, which is going to give us access to this connection I'm using here. Remember, if you go back to this file, the DB connection, you see that the only thing that it creates here is this connection. So after getting this connection, we bring it inside here, and it is the one we are using in here. So you can see how things start to work together. So this one is going to insert the data, but after the data has been inserted, we want actually to do something. We want to show a user that a data has been inserted successfully. So at this point, we can do an if. We could just say if, and then we put this one. Okay, if this is successful, we want something like echo. Okay, echo new record has been added. So you could just say new student has been registered. In fact, say new student has been registered, or you have been registered since a student himself. Okay, you can say you have been registered successfully, like that. Okay, I think this is the spelling of successfully. You have many S's. here. Okay, else, so if it fails, we want actually to echo an error. We say echo, and you could echo something like error. Okay, error, and we could concatenate the SQL. Okay, SQL, and also concatenate the BR tag. Okay, just concatenate the BR tag to just break the error on the new line, like that. Concatenate the MySQLi error, MySQLi error, and this error takes in a connection, $con, as simple as that. So this one is going to tell us if the new user has been registered successfully, or if there is an error, then it should tell us about this error. And this is how we write the error part. We concatenate the SQL, the one we have just done on top there, and then we concatenate the MySQL error, which takes in the connection. And the problem will always result from the connection or the query. Okay? Now, after doing that, we now first check the database. Someone may say we inserted the data before. We want to check clear that there is nothing or any data in the database. You can see there is no anything in the database. Let's switch back to our form here. Now, of course, I am just going to refresh here so that we have no errors. So you can see we have no errors and we have connection successful. This is great. You have to make sure that there is no any problem with connection. If we try to submit minus data, you can see we have a problem. You have been registered successfully. We are going to see how to handle that. But for now, it says all fields are required. Please fill all of them. Okay, so let me just go ahead. And now want to put some data. Just simply create a name here. And by the way, we don't want anything to happen. Okay, we don't want anything to happen here. You can see if this error happens, then we don't want anything to happen, like inserting data. That means we could put all this one in the else. Okay, so this inserting the data here, let's cut all this one. Okay, just come here, cut all this, and let's put in the else part. Okay, if there is any problem, we shouldn't do anything. Okay, if there is any these ones are empty, it should just give us only this. Okay, let's go back and see if it is working now. Just do that, submit. You see, it has not added anything like data successfully added or anything. It gave us all fields are required, please fill all of them, because of the if here, if there is this one is empty, it does this. If everything is okay, then it proceeds to the errors part. Okay, so let's put some data now. Let me just go here, refresh. Let me put the student name here. I'm just going to say JB. Okay, web developer. Okay, the course, let me put mechanical engineering. In fact, let me just say web development. Why not? Web development. Click submit. Okay, connection successful. You have been registered successful. That means our data must be have been added in the database. Let's go and confirm. Fingers crossed. Refresh. Wow, 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 wow. Look at that, guys. Look at that. So we have our data here. Okay, now you can see the empty cell we added last time. You see that? That's where the problems come from. We have an empty cell, and I'm just going to drop this so we can delete this. Okay, we have deleted it. Let's go back to our table here. students. Okay, and we have one field right now. So we have one record, and you can see I have student name written very well and a student course that we have put. Okay, so this is great, guys. This is very great. So let me just now handle this. We could just put a very nice card. You have been registered successfully. You can remove this connection successful. Let's first remove that. In the DB connection, if you test it and everything is okay, you don't need this line. You can comment it out, okay, so that you don't have it. And then we can nicely put this one. You can put it in a very nice card or anything you want. Okay, so let's say here, instead of echoing just like this, we want to echo something like h1, maybe a div or anything. Okay, let me just put a p tag. So I'm just going to say p like that, and let me just write this content inside. You have been, so let's give this one class, and the class here I'm just going to give it like success message. Okay, this is a class. I'm just going to copy this class in CSS, try to style it, give it a color of green, something like that. Okay, so CSS is down here, by the way. So here we have the error. I'm just going to put success message. Let me first put some padding, okay, to it. Maybe 2 top and bottom, 1 rem and 2 rem on the sides. Let me give it a max width, okay, or maybe 500 pixels. Maybe color, so we could give it a background color of like green or something. I just give a background color of green, and let's also give color white. Okay, this one should look somehow nice. Okay, so after we have done this, we have our message. So let's just come here, refresh again. We are going to insert another field. So full name, let's ask someone, maybe Andrew. Let's add Andrew. And the course name, let's put mechanical engineering. Okay, so click submit. Okay, you can see a very nice stuff here. You have been registered successfully. That is looking great, guys. Okay, so the data has been added to the database. Let's go and check, refresh. We should see the second. Yes, so you can see here ID 3, student name Andrew, student course is mechanical engineering. So congratulations, guys. Congratulations to upon reaching this level of adding your first CRUD operation. So at this point, you have done a number of things. Thank you so much. I want to thank you, those ones who are following up the content. If you're understanding and you like these kind of videos, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, share the content, and let everyone get the content. Okay, I'm not going to go through again, but we are going to go through this a number of times when we are doing our projects. But briefly, we created our DB connection. We received our data from the form. We created a form down here to give us the data. Okay, remember this form. We submitted the form. The data moves up here. Okay, we receive the data on top here. After receiving the data, we validate it. If it is not okay, we give errors. We looked at the error handling, and then if the data is okay, we insert it in the database using this SQL command. Okay, And then if that has been added successfully, we give this card, and if there is any errors, it will tell us the errors here. And that is what we have been doing in this episode. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next episode.